Snow swirled through the Wyoming Territory in the winter of 1887, erasing roads, swallowing fences, and silencing even the boldest of men. The wind howled across the plains like a living thing, rattling the loose boards of the Cheyenne train station and pushing bitter cold through every crack it could find. On a wooden bench beneath the station's overhang sat a woman with blue-tinged lips and trembling hands. Elizabeth Libby Montgomery held a small leather bag against her chest as though it were the last warm thing left in the world. Inside it lay $3 in coins, a faded photograph of her parents standing stiffly in their Sunday best, and her nursing certificates, proof of who she had once been. The last train east had left 3 hours earlier. The next would not arrive until morning, if the storm allowed it. Her breath came in shallow clouds. Her fingers had lost feeling. Her thoughts drifted between memory and prayer. So this is how it ends, she thought, not in a hospital ward saving lives, but alone, frozen, and forgotten. Once, in Philadelphia, she had been respected. She had tended wounds in the charity hospital, soothed fevered children, and held the hands of dying men so they would not leave this world alone. But when Dr. Harrison cornered her in a supply room and tried to force himself upon her, she defended herself with the nearest object, a metal bedpan, and shattered his pride along with his nose. He called her hysterical, dishonorable, and society believed him. No hospital would hire her. Doors closed one by one. So she boarded a train west, believing the untamed frontier might judge her by skill rather than gossip. But money runs out faster than hope. Now she sat beneath a Wyoming sky, wondering whether she had made the greatest mistake of her life. Then she heard it, the rhythmic thud of horse hooves cutting through the storm. Through sheets of snow emerged a rider on a powerful black stallion. The animal's coat gleamed despite the ice gathering at its mane. The rider dismounted with steady strength, tying the reins before stepping toward the station. He pushed through the door, bringing a gust of wind and swirling snow behind him. "Evenin', miss," he said, removing his hat. His voice was deep, steady, warm as cedar wood. Libby tried to answer, but her teeth chattered too violently. She nodded instead. He studied her for only a moment before concern overtook courtesy. "You're near frozen." His coat was thick wool, his boots polished leather, but nothing about him seemed vain. His face bore the mark of long days beneath the sun. His eyes, dark and thoughtful, held something rare in a man of means. "My name's Jackson Thornton," he said. "Most folks call me Jack. I own the Double T Ranch north of here." The name stirred faint recognition. The Double T was known across Wyoming Territory. "I'm Elizabeth Montgomery," she managed to whisper. "Nurse." His eyes widened slightly. A trained nurse in Wyoming was rarer than gold. "You'll not survive this night out here," he said quietly. "Please, let me take you somewhere warm." "I have no money," she said, shame flooding her cheeks despite the cold. "That's not your concern." Without hesitation, he removed his heavy coat and wrapped it around her shoulders. The lingering warmth of his body seeped into her skin. When she tried to stand, her legs buckled. Before pride could protest, he lifted her gently into his arms, medical bag and all. She was startled by how safe she felt. Through the storm, he carried her across the street to the Cattleman's Hotel, the finest establishment in Cheyenne. Whispers followed them as he entered, snow clinging to his shoulders. "Best room," Jack told the clerk. "Fire burning, food and coffee, and fetch blankets." He carried her upstairs as though she weighed nothing. Inside the warm room, he set her by the fireplace and worked quickly to build up the flames. He poured coffee with careful hands and wrapped her in wool blankets. "Drink slowly," he said. The warmth returned to her limbs like tiny needles. She studied him over the rim of her cup. "You seem to know something of medicine." "When you run a ranch, you learn what you must," he replied. She hesitated, then spoke of Philadelphia, of the accusation, of the broken nose and broken reputation. Jack's jaw tightened. "He tried to harm you." "Yes." "And you fought back." "Yes." "Good," he said softly. "I'm glad you did." For the first time in months, Libby nearly smiled. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. He looked toward the fire for a long moment before answering. "Because I know what it is to lose someone you should have protected." His voice carried something deeper than politeness. He left her to change into dry clothing donated by a kind hotel guest, and when Libby slept that night, it was the first true rest she had known since leaving home. By morning, the storm had passed. Jack returned with breakfast and a proposition. "My ranch employs near 100 men during peak season," he explained. "Men get hurt. We lose good hands for lack of proper care. I've been praying for a healer." "You would hire a woman?" she asked. "I'd hire the right person." He offered her fair wages, her own cabin, and a fully equipped medical room he had prepared months earlier, hoping. "You owe me nothing personal," he added firmly. "If anything grows between us, it will be because we both choose it." Libby studied his face. Honesty lived there. "I will try," she said. The ride north took 3 hours across snow-covered plains. The Double T Ranch unfolded like a kingdom beneath open sky. Main house, bunkhouse, stables, blacksmith shop, and fields stretching beyond sight. The men welcomed her with relief and cheer. Within hours, she was tending a hand sliced by barbed wire. Her fingers moved with confidence she feared she had lost. Word spread quickly. The Double T had its own nurse. Weeks passed. Libby treated broken ribs, frostbite, fevers, and one difficult calving that lasted nearly through the night. She moved among the men with quiet authority. They began to tip their hats to her not as curiosity, but respect. Jack watched from a distance. He admired the way she knelt beside injured cowboys without hesitation, the way she laughed softly at their jokes, yet commanded silence when needed. But something lingered behind his steady composure. One evening, after she had stitched a deep gash on his foreman's arm, she found Jack sitting alone on the porch. "You carry something heavy," she said gently. He stared at the horizon. "My younger brother died 5 winters ago, thrown from a horse during a storm much like the one I found you in. There was no doctor close enough. I held him while he bled." Silence stretched between them. "I built the medical room after that," he continued. "I promised myself no man under my care would die for lack of help again." Libby's heart ached. "You could not control that storm," she whispered. "No," he said, "but I can control what happens now." Snow melted into spring. Wildflowers painted the valley in blues and golds. Cattle grazed under endless sky. And somewhere between tending wounds and shared evening walks, love grew. Not loud, not rushed, but steady as the turning seasons. Then came the complication. A wealthy cattle baron named Henry Caldwell began pushing to buy surrounding lands, including the Double T. When Jack refused, Caldwell responded by hiring rough riders to sabotage fences and drive cattle astray. One night, a fire broke out in the north pasture bunkhouse. Libby rushed toward the flames before fear could stop her. Inside, smoke choked the air. A ranch hand lay unconscious beneath a fallen beam. She dragged him inch by inch toward the doorway. Then the roof groaned. Strong arms wrapped around her waist. Jack. He carried both her and the injured man out moments before the roof collapsed. Under the orange glow of dying flames, Libby trembled, not from cold, but from the realization of how close she had come to leaving him. "You could have died," Jack whispered. "So could he," she replied. Caldwell's sabotage was exposed weeks later. Witnesses stepped forward. The territory court sided with Jack. The Double T stood firm. But something else changed that night by the fire. Jack understood fully that loving Libby meant loving her courage, the very thing that had cost her everything back east. And Libby understood that Jack's strength was not wealth, but devotion. Under a cottonwood tree in early summer, Jack asked her to marry him. No grand speech, just steady eyes and a question asked with reverence. "Yes," she answered. Their wedding drew ranchers from Colorado to Montana. People spoke of the millionaire cowboy and the nurse who froze at a train station. But those who knew them understood the truth. It was never about wealth. It was about choosing to see someone's worth when the world refused. Years later, the Double T Ranch became known not only for fine horses, but for its infirmary. Travelers rode miles seeking Libby's care. Jack built a small schoolhouse nearby. The valley flourished. And whenever winter winds howled across Wyoming, Jack would sometimes stand quietly at the edge of the porch, remembering the night a storm delivered him the greatest gift of his life. Libby would join him, slipping her hand into his. Not rescued, but chosen. Their love became legend, not because it was dramatic, but because it was steadfast. Two wounded souls who met in a storm and chose warmth. And that, dear friends, is the kind of history that matters. If this story touched your heart, if you believe in second chances and quiet courage, then you are already part of the Desert Hearth family. Subscribe for more stories where loyalty runs deeper than rivers and love burns brighter than any frontier storm. Until next time, hold fast to kindness. It may be the very thing that saves someone's life. Slow your breath now. Picture the Wyoming wind soft against summer grass. Picture two figures on a porch at sunset. And remember, sometimes the coldest night leads to the warmest forever.